for another episode of Get a Load of This. From the Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dave.
Dave is with us. We have another guest.
We need a little more enthusiasm than that,
I'm Dave.
I'm Dave.
Hey, there we
Yes.
go.
But
like that.
he is a loyal listener. I don't know. Can we get into how we know each other? We know each
Well,
other.
I just met him for the second time. And he didn't
yeah, you
remember
guys
the first
met a
time
long
we
time
met.
ago. But
Yeah.
Dave's my brother-in-law.
Yes.
Good guy.
Aw,
Aw.
that's great.
A local business owner, hardworking
Yeah.
husband, father,
Entrepreneur,
all that
small
good
business
stuff.
owner.
And a
My pappy was a pistol. I'm a son of a gun. I'm a
left-wing
hard worker.
Democrat. No,
Son of a gun. No.
He's,
yeah.
Bleeding
I
heart
mean,
liberal.
Not well.
no, I said hardcore. No, you're
not
not
hardcore.
No,
None of those things.
I'm moving more to the center every day.
It's funny
he's
that
got his Antifa mask in the car.
right.
Oh.
So we recorded a bunch of stuff before we actually kicked this thing off. We got down a little bit of a rabbit hole. We talked for 18 minutes about a lot of things. And while we were talking about it, you're making me think, like, we talked about Dave Rubin, we talked about Weinstein, we talked about all these folks that are left of center, but by Antifa, by the far left, they're considered right-wing radicals. Rogan
Right.
is frequently called a right-wing white nationalist, and as well as Rubin and Shapiro and all these people. And it's funny how things have shifted. I think there was an article recently that I saw that talked about this shift in political ideologies. What used to be far right is now what 10 years ago was far right is now kind of right of center. It's, I don't know, about 3/4 of the way over to the scale. And then the far right now is the white nationalists and the wackadoos out there, right? And then out on the left is shifted way out there too. So now if you were a moderate leftist, like a Hillary Clinton, or probably a little further right of Hillary, but around there, now that's far right compared to the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, and these more radical leftists that are out there nowadays.
Times they are a changing.
Yeah. Everything's moving. Everything's a moving target. And they say that whenever you see like a shift, when Obama was elected, that a shift in politics, it's the pendulum swinging, right? It's going to go however far it went with Obama, which it did. It went pretty far left, that it's going to swing back much more violently. And I think it has. I don't know when it'll settle down. I mean, now we're going to have another swing back whenever Trump leaves office, and whenever the Republicans are out of control completely, and God knows what's going to happen then. It's just hopefully it finds some calming space in the center.
Right.
So I don't know.
Do you think that'll happen? Do you think the Republicans will end up losing their seat sort of all over the place, and it will swing that far to the left?
I don't think it'll be. No, I don't.
Do you think the craziness will sort of come to the surface, and a lot of people? I mean, the majority of people will go, "Look,
yeah,
what's going on here?"
I think the majority of people, I've said this before on the podcast, that the vast majority of people are normal, right, proper thinking, sound-minded individuals, that it's like 30% of society is out on those fringes on the right and left. So 15% on one, 50% on the other, whatever, give or take, right?
Right, the very low percentage.
Yeah, but 70% of the populace is here in the middle in this little pocket. This is the real right and left and center. This is where everybody should be, probably. It's the radicals out there, but they're the loudest, right? So everybody gives them all the attention. The media loves to give them attention. And, of course, people love attention. Everybody's looking for their 15 minutes, so they get the camera.
Well, everybody has a platform.
Well, right. And now, yes, with the 24-hour news
including
cycle.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, we talked about that.
Everybody's got a podcast.
Couple episodes about everybody's an expert, right?
Yeah.
And we're hypocrites because we're doing the
Well,
same thing.
maybe not. I mean, it's sort of an answer to this sort of, quick fix, send out a quick message, call out culture, irate sort of, no, you can't say that, the straw man argument kind of thing that you see on social media. And it's taken it a step farther, maybe in the ways of people who are very successful at podcasting, like Joe Rogan or whoever, and opening up a conversation. And that's what I'm really focused in, I think, is the conversation.
The people that podcast we can't do social media that well. There's people that can do both, no doubt. I mean, but I think for the most part, as anybody that's watched or listened, I got a lot to say, and I don't know that I could put it into however many characters Twitter allows me to, and I don't know that I could put it into a comment on Facebook. I don't want to type that much on my phone or any device, but this is the medium that I require But so the people, I sit here and I'll knock people that post constantly on Facebook. I did this. I took a shit today. I took my baby to the doctor, whatever. Who cares, right? But, well, I'm the same way. Who gives a shit what I think,
Right.
But I sit here in front of this microphone once a week and...
But if you have 3 people, and especially with the video, and I think the video is an important aspect of it. I know you guys have not really focused on that as much. But, I mean, when you 3, or you 2, or 3 people, whoever's in, are talking, there's a lot of nuance there that you can pick up. I think that's why I'm so attracted to podcasts, especially in the YouTube realm, is because if you watch, first of all, if you have an hour and a half long conversation, you're getting a lot of information. It's hard for a person to kind of be inconsistent or not be able to back what they're talking about.
Right.
I mean, that's going to come out. It's going to come to the surface. But you can also read body language. You can also see when somebody says something that maybe they did out of emotion, but they really didn't mean. And there's enough time that you can self-correct. You can sit and ponder while the other person's talking and go, well, maybe I do agree with that a little bit more.
But the other side of that's true, that you can get yourself in a situation where you're shooting from the hip, you're spitballing. I did it 2 episodes ago where I forget what I was saying, but I was like, I'm just thinking outside of the, I'm just kind of spitballing here. And I said something that I didn't really 100% buy into. It was just like, that's an idea, and it comes out of my mouth, and I was like, well, shit, I got to back that up, or I got to back it off,
or you got to present it as like, I don't know, I'm just presenting this side of the argument. I'm not saying it's true, but what about this?
Right, which is kind of what I said. But so that's what you have to, with this, you have to kind of be careful. We don't. Our audience is not that broad. But if you're a celebrity, if you're an established personality, an established celebrity, and you say things that are out there, it's going to come back to bite you. It's going to be in the media the next day.
I think that's what Rogan has going for him. I mean, he's totally honest, and he doesn't care.
Right.
He's just like, whatever, I don't care. This is how I feel, and that honesty really comes through. I mean, he's got a lot of subscribers.
Oh yeah. I think he's the widest listened to podcast in the.
But he's also in a position where what he says isn't going to prevent him from getting his next movie role or his next, whatever, because he's doing that thing already.
I think he cares.
That's what I'm saying, but a lot of people do care. Like if you were, Tom Hanks or something, you're not going to go and say whatever because you might not get hired again after that. Or, I'm just throwing that out there.
That's a problem.
Well, it is, but that's where I can see everybody deals with that. There's things we say, hey, we can't talk about that on the podcast because my boss might hear this.
Well,
there's a reason why we don't.
You work like in a whole different situation.
Right? There's a lot of people that have to deal with that.
You don't want to get thrown out of the bunker, but I have a different set of circumstances too. That's also why we don't give our last name, and I don't talk about where I work and who I work for, and those kinds of things, because I would open up a whole other set of requirements that I would have to then give disclaimers, and I would have to. Yeah. There's a lot of things that would come with it, and also, I want to be able to go to work and tell my coworkers, like, "Hey, I have a podcast. You should listen to it," and not be like, "Oh crap, did I say something, or did someone say something that could be offensive to that individual?" I don't want that. So when we get into these political conversations, I run that risk. There's a young lady I was talking to. She's in my office here in St. Louis, and she has a podcast. And she's a technologist. She's in our innovation team. Nice. So she's a very smart young lady and very eccentric and a very interesting girl and woman. And I said, "Oh, I have a podcast too." So I said it, and I was like, "Oh Jesus, she's gonna." I mean, because I lay it out there. I don't hold back where I stand on these things. And I don't know if she's the type of person that if she found out that we wouldn't be able to have any conversations anymore. Yeah. I don't know.
That would be on her, though.
Sure. But I don't want to have to even deal with that.
See, that's the thing where I feel like you and I and anybody we've had on so far, this is about as honest as it gets. Like, we're not holding back. We're plenty crude, plenty of the time. We get fired up. We're definitely giving our opinion. So I think I hope that comes through on the podcast, that people kind of feel like they're hearing who we are and what we think. I said, "Oh, we can't say that because our boss might hear it," but that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah,
there's very little that we hold back, and part of it is we just, as normal people in normal conversation, we're not saying much that we wouldn't want someone to hear.
Yeah, it's whenever you're dealing with those coworkers or with those kind of unknown people that kind of know you on the fringes, and you don't. My concern is I don't want them passing judgment on me based off of this alone. If it's someone that knows me and has had multiple conversations with me, and then they hear this, they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah,
right," because they know you don't have to
right.
worry about it. You
Right.
know they'll be able to distinct, like
Right.
whatever, that's
Right.
Ryan, or Ryan's done that in the
But
opinion.
if someone doesn't know me, they just know that, yep, he works here, and then they listen to this little snippet, hour of my life. Who knows what the hell they're going to think about me at that point, So I don't know.
Well,
it's just a slip.
Speaking
it's a
of
thing,
technology and changing times, that's really why we had Dave on the podcast this afternoon. We want to get into something that I think interests you a lot, and it interests us, but maybe in different ways. But just kind of the emerging technologies, the advancing technologies, specifically AI. What is AI, and
what is AI?
What's the implication of the future of anything from politics to economy to privacy, all these different concerns that are all really interesting.
How do you see AI?
So I feel like it's changed a lot over the years, what people think of what AI is, artificial intelligence. It used to be, just a computer that could talk, right? So,
war games.
Yeah. War games. I saw it in the theater.
Right, right.
Well, when I was watching, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I don't mean to, but the video with the defense folks, the guys from the DOD, I immediately started thinking, like, we've settled this. War games settled it. Matthew Broderick solved this problem.
Program AI to play tic-tac-toe. You're set.
This is. I don't know why we're still talking about it. This is over. The conversation's done.
But that's, like you said, AI is a machine that can play chess or whatever, right? So, but now it's more like it's algorithms, it's calculations, it's being able to process data quicker than a person, which obviously computers have always been able to do that, but it's like process it and understand it and do something with it.
You sort of remove the human element out of it a little bit. You set up a system where it can work within itself. Mm-hmm. So it works with the data. It can sort of use a different system that's autonomous as sort of the gauge or the judge, or the sort of the binary yes no, so, and everything's very binary with AI,
right?
It doesn't give you nuance.
Now you get into the fantastical element and you start talking about machines that think for themselves, that don't have to do what humans say, that kind of thing, and it's like, well, there's a
so
gray
that would be
area
called
there.
General AI. So you can break AI into two parts. So narrow AI, which is kind of what we see and what is available, and then there's general AI. And general AI would be sort of an agent acting on its own with intention, which is kind of how we would define people, right? And it's sort of hard to wrap our head around, but we've got plenty of movies to fall back on. And so I think we initially go to that. And so that's very dramatic. And so now we're 2019 and you're seeing the media just pumping us with that.
Right.
I mean, I see it all the time, just the AI talk. And, usually in the first 5 minutes, somebody's either talking about killer robots or talking about how it's not killer robots. And aside from the Department of Defense, I don't know what goes on in the Department of Defense and Project Maven, but it's not killer robots.
Right.
It's actually very, very sort of kind of boring stuff. But we are in a situation where, I was thinking about this on the drive down. I was like, well, how much am I trackable? Like, what is my day like?
Right.
When I get up in the morning, what do I do? Well, I look on my phone or I get on my computer. So the algorithm knows when I get up, and it knows where I go and what I search. If I had Alexa, which I don't, it might know what I would ask it. There was I don't think it was in that video. Was it in the video that I sent you from Amy Webb at South by Southwest, where they discussed Amazon applying for a patent that Alexa would be able to pick up sort of emotional and more behavioral metadata
vocal
from you.
tones and
Right. So that's on the horizon.
I'm surprised it's not art.
It probably is to an extent. It
probably already is here.
I mean, the interesting thing to me about
it's artificial intelligence with emotional intelligence. essentially.
Well, or the ability to distinguish your emotional state. It doesn't have an emotional intelligence, but it can tell when you're angry. It can tell when you get red and flushed.
Right. See, I do have Alexa, and if you whisper at her, be like, Alexa, set an alarm for 5:30 tomorrow morning. So
she'll
whisper back, and she's like, okay.
She really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's weird.
I got your alarm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's creepy kind of shit.
How do you feel about having Alexa in your house?
Obviously, I still have her, and we have multiple. We have the Dots. We have the old OG Alexa, the original Gen 1, big tower Pringle can looking one. They don't scare me. I don't do anything crazy in my house. It's not like I'm talking about.
Right.
But I'm certain that they're gathering information. I know that it's always listening. I don't think Amazon is taking a full 24-hour-a-day recording of my world.
Why?
And parsing out words and listening for words. I don't
either, but
I think that would be an immense undertaking for everybody that owns an Alexa out there. That would be the processing power required to listen to every Alexa device 24 hours a day and listen for certain keywords so that they can target me with an ad on Amazon so they can say, oh, this guy needs paper towels.
But how does
I think they have the capability of doing that, and it's always listening, but to say that there's a file of 24-hour day sitting on a hard drive somewhere and all they have to do is go back and pull it up, I don't think that's happening. I think anytime they could turn it on and say, oh, he just said keyword, we're going to listen for the next 8 hours and see what else happens.
I think that Snowden, right? I think that the NSA or the CIA can certainly flip that on just like they can flip on a webcam and see what's going on. I think that's real. I think that's certainly a possibility. But I don't think that they're gathering that much. Now, I think that Google and Apple are taking words that we type into our search engine clearly, but also into our text messages or
right.
And I think they're listening to us on our phones too.
They are.
And they're taking words that but there's trigger words. It's not like they're recording and they're listening for everything. They're listening for certain things that then kick off some type of a response.
I would disagree, but I would say that they probably are gathering everything because, I mean, basically, it's if you think of it in terms of if you have a conversation in your house with another, or we have a conversation here and our phones are on and so they're recording and whatever. It's not that somebody's, got to dictate that or somebody's got to go and I got to store that and, back it up and whatever.
Right.
It's just kind of out there. You know what I mean? It's like you're burning fuel, so to speak.
Right.
It's just out there. But then it can be collected because it's out there. And the metadata, that's the stuff that people aren't paying attention to. It's the background noise. That's the stuff that really, I mean, if you can get enough of it, has deep value.
That's where the deep learning comes from of AI. So let me riddle you this, right? So we look at our stats for our podcast. We had a record week last week. Thank you to everybody that listens and downloads. It was it's a shock, honestly, because we come back from a 2-month hiatus and boom, all these
we had a pretty heavy topic.
It was a heavy, some heavy topics, and I think people missed us. I think Rick definitely did. So that was refreshing to hear him say. Is like he was excited to hear the music kick off when he was like, "Oh shit, they're back." That's cool, and I dig it. But anyway, to see these numbers, and I dig a little deeper than I should sometimes, but when you could break it down by geographical region, right? So we look at since we started this, California is a huge market, and specifically the Bay Area. And I'm like, I don't know all the topics we've talked about in 95 episodes. Why the fuck do we keep getting these listeners in the Bay Area? Now, I think some of them are real, and they're but I also think a lot of them are Silicon Valley machines downloading our podcast, parsing out words, listening to everything that we say, and building metadata behind our podcast. Right. And I'm okay with it because it still counts as a download. So I'm not upset about it. But I wish that, and if you go into Google, because it'll tell you the source, like what bot downloaded it. It'll give you it'll say bot. But you can't find anything about it. It's like they're all just nondescript. You can't Google anything on them. You can't find much out. Which is kind of creepy. I wish they were just honest. Just be honest with me.
Well, I don't think they know totally. I mean, that's one of the weird things about AI is that there's a part of it that they don't really know what's going on. They can't lay it out and explain it.
That's terrifying if that's the case.
I mean, because you basically put your information into the system. It's like a program, right?
Yeah.
And then it gives you back sort of a test result, and then you sort of adjust it and tweak, and then you can rerun that, and then you can unleash it. You can set it. I mean, we were talking about TensorFlow.
Yeah.
Which is one of Google's
AI engine.
open source AI engines that anybody can use. So you guys could use it for your podcast if you want. If you want to try to figure out, I don't know, analytics of who's listening to what at what times of the day. You could do that. You could figure out, like, are they on their computers versus their phones? Are they?
See, I have a hard time equating that with artificial intelligence. So, to me, that's just programming. You just wrote an application that does a thing, and you're feeding data into it. But like, why is that AI?
Well, imagine trying to write a program that would do that.
Well,
it would be pretty astronomical. To write a program that was going to search out, say,
that's exactly what someone did. Like they wrote.
Well, it works more off of like I said, systems working back and forth, and one thing that's interesting, AI is kind of broken into sort of two categories, basic categories. There's a lot of image recognition. And then there's a lot of sort of more language and text-based recognition. Everything is sort of put into sort of, is given sort of a number or it doesn't exist in the same realm that we exist when we're talking. For instance, if you're going to get onto TensorFlow and you wanted to, one of the test patterns, I was on there last night because I don't know, because I'm a nerd. And
admitting it's the first step.
That they had a test thing. It was something about it would cross-reference images of fashion, and one of the first things it does is it takes these two-dimensional images and it breaks them apart into a one-dimensional format because that's how it's the easiest way for it to sort of process all that, and then it uses what they would call blocks, where it's sort of this mass number. I don't know how, the way I envision it is like, imagine if you had a lot of programmers working together on one thing and they were bouncing stuff back and forth until they got it right. Now imagine if they weren't people, but they were algorithms. So they work at the speed of photons, that kind of thing. And then at that point it has to adjust and make a decision and move forward. That's the weird part that they don't know. That they and especially in closed, sort of what they would call black box sort of algorithms. So then you end up with this. Well, is it better to have open source or is it better to have closed source? Because everybody has access to open source, which means everybody's info is hackable, and it's just like privacy is dead. Right. I mean, we all are kind of coming to terms with the fact that we don't have privacy.
Yeah. The only way to get privacy anymore is just to unplug everything.
Right.
Is to live in the woods.
So we have relatives that are sort of under that train of thought that they're just going to avoid it as long as they can. But if all of society is used, I mean, it would be the equivalent of like, everybody's into electricity, but we think electricity is bad, could burn your house down. So we're just not going to use it. Well, that's not going to last long. You can't function in a world where everybody uses electricity, but you're against it because you're afraid it's going to burn your house down.
Right.
So that sort of concept with AI is sort of the same way. But the privacy thing is, we want transparency with these companies, but we want our privacy private. But we want these tools. So when I want to know, like what year was Oscar Mayer invented, then I can look it up and check it out.
Right.
And
or I need
that
directions.
takes data.
I need directions to this remote campground. They want that, but they don't want Google to know that they went to the remote campground.
Right. You can't have both, or one and not the other. I mean, you have to have both.
We go back to street guides. I mean, we can go back to everybody has the street guide in the back seat of their car and
the Atlas map.
Or even if you just had the old Garmin, that was offline. You had to update it, with a disc or whatever.
Oh, believe it was offline, huh?
That was one of the things with Apple Maps. I mean, why everybody was like, it's because I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but that's more of a closed system. And they don't have the data interface back and forth because it is a closed system for security reasons.
So, but you
their
believe,
maps suck.
You believe, though, that they weren't gathering any information, that they were just providing this little map tool.
No. I believe it's like a doorway. Information flows back and forth. I don't think anybody's stopping that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, you can have sort of a general closed system that cuts that down substantially. Like if I lose my if I forget my password, and I call Apple and go, hey, I forgot my password. And then they gave me what's your mother's maiden name? And I'm like, I don't remember. They're at a point where they're going, sorry,
right,
you're out of luck. I mean, there's not many systems that gets to that where you can't move forward.
Right.
You know,
Apple sucks with passwords. So my wife has a Mac. My son's or only one of my sons has an iPhone. All of my boys used to have iPhones. I've been an Android guy and a Windows and Chromebook supporter advocate for forever. And so I bought her a Mac because she does photo editing, and I thought, okay, it's a powerful, reliable. You really can't break them. I mean, they're pretty much ironclad. They just keep crunching along.
They do.
And you can't refute that, Jared.
No comment.
But with the iTunes passwords and all these, just really a shitty experience. The way that it gathers your credentials, the way that it stores them, how frequently they expire, which I know it's all for the better. It's all for my own good. The fact that there's a machine password and then there's an iTunes password. If they get out of sync, you're fucked.
Right. You just can't move. You
you're
can't
just
move
completely
forward.
screwed.
But that's going to go away because you'll have facial recognition
Right.
and bone recognition.
Yeah.
You'll be able to just look at it.
Which is also scary too, because that means they're basically building a model of me, and they can, Bill Burr does a joke about this. He's like, they did, what was it? It was the mattress. I think he was selling. He was doing ads for mattresses. Like you stand in front of your webcam and it does like a scan of your body, and they'll send you a mattress that's fit for your needs or whatever. Maybe it was a suit, whatever it was.
Right.
And he's like, well, then no, they're going to build a model of me. It's going to knock on my door. It's going to kill me. It's going to take over my life. And now I'm dead. And now this AI bot that looks just like me is running my life,
right?
Banging my wife.
How many people do 23andMe or
Right.
Ancestry.com or whatever?
Well, I've seriously considered, and I want to do those things, but it scares the shit out of me.
Don't do it.
What are they going to do to me if I were to do it?
What I don't know if they would do anything to you.
Or what's your deepest fear, I guess? Let me ask that.
I mean, at this point, because I do view this stage as sort of a Wild West stage. I mean, we're seeing talk of regulation. You're seeing people get slapped on the wrist. Facebook just had to pay like $5 billion. Facebook had already allocated that money. They knew that was coming. Mm-hmm. And if you look at like or maybe it's million, I don't remember. It doesn't. I can't comprehend that many zeros after a point.
Right. Either way, they can afford it.
Either way, they can afford it. It's a drop, compared to what their profit line is. But I lost my train of thought because I got on the Facebook. Help me out. Back me up. What were we just talking about?
Shit, I forgot. We're gonna have to rewind.
We're all thinking about what we're gonna say.
Anyway,
next.
You said, what are you worried about?
Oh yeah, what are you scared about?
I think it's the thing is going back to the whole. Well, it's all once you kind of move forward, it's out there, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't go away. I mean, there's no like I want to clean myself up, hit delete, and like that's all gone. And that's your DNA. I mean, that's basically your fundamental building blocks of what makes you you. Right.
They can make another one just like me.
They probably can't do anything right now. In fact, I don't think they can do much with that right now. Maybe they could, but who knows in 2 years what they can do, in 4 years what they can do. And this was brought up, I think, at one of Amy. I'm going to reference Amy Webb. I think we're going to leave that link because I think it's a good intro into AI or technology. Because actually it's not that much. It is, but it's not.
It's a lot of information.
That sounds super cryptic. It's not. It's just so much information that's come about this year. But I mean, who owns your DNA? I mean, or you sign some sort of consent, just like we are always like, yes, get
so
me through this.
Do you use the fingerprint scanner on your phone?
I have an older phone, which I don't recommend, but it's not
It's
a smart
secure,
thing.
yeah.
It's less secure,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
There's a reason why you should probably stay up with,
Right.
your upgrades or your
Software updates, security
updates,
and
and frankly, get new phones when they come out. I guess if you can afford it.
So
but
you don't use fingerprint, like your
I don't use
fingerprint
it.
or facial recognition?
No.
No, none of that. Okay.
All my devices, other than the phone, and I was thinking about this. Usually, they have. I have tape over the cameras.
Right on.
I actually have done that for a long time.
Yeah.
Now it's not on my phone because I do take pictures for my business somewhat. But my phone, I don't have my phone out a lot, but that doesn't matter. That's a stupid
Right.
thing to say
Yeah.
because that doesn't matter.
Right.
But
It's
no,
gathered.
I don't use anything like that.
Okay.
So we've talked about, they're gathering data on us, and you touched on, who owns your DNA. Who owns the data? Sometimes it's obvious. If you've got banking information in somebody's, system, it's their responsibility to not let that get out, right? And these companies have paid billions in fines.
I have
when
actual
it happens.
legal experience with that.
Okay.
So I think we've covered before. I work in the financial services world, and we deal with client data a lot. And that question, exact question, who's the owner of this data? And so it's the financial institution. If it's a bank, if it's a brokerage firm, if it's whatever, they own the data until it is released, and through a legal process, a release of information document or some type of a legal process occurs, that the information is then released to someone else, a third party, a vendor, another customer, whatever. Now you no longer own that data anymore. Now you own the original data, but as soon as it goes to another party, it's changed. It's already appended with some other tag, with some other metadata. Now it's different data completely, and then it's instantaneous too. There's no delay in that. It's a boom. It's now different. It's changed.
But things like, let's say, forget technology.
So you don't own your data as soon as it hits the phone. But get to my point. I don't mean to interrupt
Sorry.
you, but just to finish what I was kind of thinking there is that as soon as it's in the phone and it goes up, and you hope that it's anonymized, but even if it's not, it doesn't matter. It's their data. Now you don't own it anymore because now you've signed a waiver. You've clicked I agree on all those user agreements that say they can have it. So it's theirs. It's you have no rights to it. Unless there's a flaw in their legalese that they have you agree to whenever you install.
But what
the
about
software.
all of this observation tech? So they're listening, they're watching, they're paying attention to patterns, the products that you ordered, when it got delivered, when did you get home that afternoon? Those types of things. That's all data that's being collected all the time on all of us.
Right.
But it's not the same as my banking information or my social security number. It's not that.
It's more dangerous.
Right.
Why?
It's the metadata, but who owns it? Nobody.
But why is it more dangerous? I mean, I guess if you're doing something nefarious, maybe it is. But what are we doing? What are you doing that you need to keep a secret?
I think you're looking at it in the wrong way.
It's not that, it's not dangerous in the sense of I could get busted for that thing I'm doing.
Okay.
It's how can they use this either against me or to control me or to just manipulate me for shopping or something.
Right.
I don't want to be manipulated that way.
Sure. Well, Amy Webb, going back to what you were talking about with her with the South by Southwest, I think a lot of us do. We love it until it's obvious that they're targeting us. But what she said was that she gave the scenarios, right? There's the happy life, and then there's the neutral, and then there's the holy shit, this is the fucking end of the world scenario.
Catastrophe.
Yeah, the catastrophic experience, right? So, and she talked about the last one she was talking about was, I guess, the robot overlords or something like that were, maybe it wasn't robots, but it was basically they're gonna completely take over our life, and we have no control over anything anymore.
She was talking about how she felt that the data was showing that these companies. So let's back up a little bit. So there's not a lot of companies, big companies, right? There's 9 of them, according to what most people say. So you've got 6 of them in the U.S. and 3 in Asia.
Right.
And India is becoming a big contender. I mean, they are very focused on being a contender in technology. So you've got Google and Facebook, Microsoft, IBM,
Alibaba.
Is it Apple?
Apple.
Yeah. Is
And
Amazon?
then-
Amazon?
And Amazon. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's your 6 right there in the U.S. And her idea was well, what you're going to see is people are going to become sort of, you're going to fall into a category. Maybe your brother-in-law is an Android person and you're an Apple person. You know what I'm saying?
Unthinkable.
The difference will be that as things become more smart, or you're maybe an Amazon person because you're the Alexa, and then pretty soon you go, well, it's pretty hard to change, and or maybe you're going to come to the point where it's like, well, I have Apple and I have Amazon, but it's going to be a lot more efficient if I go with one or the other for all my needs, because Apple's such a closed system. It's hard to, with the passwords and everything. Amazon is how I buy my, a lot of my stuff, and you're going to see that more and more. I think you're really going to see it in places like this, places that are away from cities. And, it's not a big deal, although it is kind of to go to Whole Foods or to go wherever I shop. But when you're here and then you have your main retailer in this town would be Walmart.
Yeah.
Well, who's Walmart's biggest competitor?
Amazon, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you got around here that's a lot of? Well, you got a lot of land around here, right? And Amazon is the one thing she discussed is Amazon has partnered up with Lennar Home Building.
Yep.
So, I mean, what could be more convenient than having your smartphone, or not smartphone, smart home?
Yeah.
And you're able to get more than just what Walmart offers.
That was another interesting thing when I Googled Amazon smart homes. There wasn't a lot you could find out there. I eventually did find these different little pockets around the country. There's nothing in Illinois or Missouri that I saw. They're a lot of states, but not anywhere I want to live, really. There was some in Tennessee, I think Texas, Georgia, not Texas. Anyway, so.
And maybe that's your search, In other words, when you search something like that, it's really impractical to give you every option on Google, right?
Well, sure. Yeah.
And so when you get sort of this rated list of what you're looking for, that is sort of catered to you based off data transfer.
Sure, right. They know too much about me. But if I just Google Amazon smart home, I'm pretty savvy.
You should be able to find something about it.
It took me a little bit of digging, I think. It wasn't like the original, like the first posts were like, selling me Alexa, selling me smart products, selling me a Nest thermostat or webcams or something like that.
Do you have a Nest?
I do.
How long have you had it?
Not very long, less than 6 months.
Has it messed up any?
No. It's the biggest problem that we have so far is that we were all gone recently. It's been really hot around here. So this is within the past week or two. That we came home and it knew we were all gone. It knows our location, so it knew we were all away from home. And so it said, oh, okay, I'm going to save these people some money. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to get this green leaf fucking glowing on this thing, and we're going to rock some green stuff. So come home, it is hot as balls in my house.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck? You're supposed to know I'm coming home. What the? You're not paying attention. So, yeah, it pissed me off because now I'm sweating. I'm inside, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? So I don't know what I have to change, but it's clearly not firing on all cylinders. Maybe it just needs to learn more. That could be it. It is learning still. It is gathering data on me and my family constantly. So
So one of the I'll say kind of a horror scenario, but that is a potential concern is that as we grant more and more of these devices access, like a Nest thermostat, and say, yeah, go ahead and adjust yourself whenever you think you need to, or for my benefit, right? And if we do that across the board with everything, and they're tracking everything that we're doing and everything about us physically and mentally and all this stuff, especially if they can start kind of modifying their own programming, so to speak. You've got this scenario, I think Webb even mentioned on our video, where maybe you get locked inside your house, or locked outside your house. Maybe you come home and they've determined you didn't get your steps in for the day.
Right. They tell you that. I was talking about. It's like, oh, you should not drive today. We're not going to let you open your garage door. You should ride your bike.
We're not letting you back in until you go get 5,000 more steps or whatever.
Right.
Well, what happens if you're running from a predator and you have to get in your house and it decided not to let you in, and now you got attacked?
Obviously, that's extreme, and that is a scary circumstances. I mean, I think it's extreme.
Black bear population is up in Missouri. Just saying.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there's a vote for firearms then, so everybody should just carry a pistol on their hip, and
you can't outrun the black bear.
Well, you could shoot the motherfucker.
You better unload on them. Bears are big creatures.
Advocates for bigger guns.
A whole other episode.
That's not what I was asking for. I'm not anti-gun.
Yeah, no, I know. I
don't own a gun.
I'm poking the bear, if you will. So, but you can always unplug it. Is where I was going with that. Is like those
But
are
not if
extreme.
you live in an Amazon home.
I think that there would be warning signs before that, or move. And yes,
Well,
you can unplug. You can flip the fucking circuit breaker on the
But
side
that's
of the
the
house.
thing is, eventually you won't be able to move away from this technology. You won't be able to unplug
I
it.
think
it's going to get embedded in your neural network, right? Neuralink or whatever that
maybe.
was.
So let's save that
watching
for
too much
last.
Black Mirror. I think,
Hey, that's all coming.
No, I don't disagree, but I also think there's a lot of empty land out there where you can go build a cabin or a little tiny home in the middle of nowhere.
You're going to have to get off the grid.
If it concerns you to that degree,
then
then go for it. And I imagine there'll be communities of those unplugged communities where people just don't want to deal with that. And I think that's a healthy thing too. I think there'll be a big market. Maybe that's $1 million idea.
But how does that work with economy? I mean, if you're going to be totally unplugged and be your own community of low tech, sort of pre-tech living, how do you engage it? Or do you just not engage with the outside world and might as well be in a biosphere?
I think you would.
Well, the minute you do, you automatically
you're giving them more data.
Well, you've lost that barrier that you worked so hard to build.
I think what I'm getting, you're no matter what. You have to. I mean, yes, you can shut off, and you could be like The Walking Dead and have gardens and raise cattle, and you could.
But you're still surveillance from the sky,
right?
From
yeah,
satellite.
There's no getting away from that unless the government intervenes in some way and says you can't do that.
And there's most places that you can't do that. Like I know there's been people in I think Florida that have tried to live off the grid, and the government, I think state government or local county or municipality governments basically said no.
Yeah.
No, you can't be totally off the grid. We have some accountability for this, which is
deeply wooded place.
Weird.
Like you go up in the mountains in in Oregon or Montana or Colorado or something like that. You could do who's the guy, the Unabomber dude? I mean, you could live Kaczynski. Yeah, I mean, you live like that guy, and the satellites aren't going to be able to see you through a deeply forested area.
Now, I mean,
but you've lost your whole way of life. You could live
like Ted
right?
Kaczynski if you want to avoid all this. Like that's the extreme now.
But you're going to an extreme on what the threat is of AI.
I don't think it is. I think in a 20-year period that might just be.
I think that's
the concern, right? That's where we're headed if we don't pay attention to it. Well, so okay, I got a couple points I want to get to that on notes that I brought up. So related to this, so there was a software developer that I work with, genius level guy, who one time, not related to talking about AI or anything, just talking about programming, said, it will do what you tell it to do.
That's right.
When you're talking about computers and programming, we always come across typically younger, newer programmers. They get confused. I can't figure out why this is doing this. It's being weird. It's doing something. And the answer is it's going to do what you tell it to do. There's programming in there that got to that point. Just trace it back. So either start at the beginning or work your way back. Computers only do what a programmer programmed them to do. Now it gets obviously very, very complicated, but they're not going to do anything that we don't allow them to do or tell them to do.
Which is also problematic. It's not going to do something you don't tell it to do. So if you're expecting to do something and it doesn't do it, well, you obviously didn't tell it to do it.
So I wrote the question, can a computer write new programming that frees it from the limitations of its existing code? The answer is yes. There's an AI called Bayou, as in like down in the Louisiana Bayou, that uses neural sketch learning to read code from GitHub. GitHub is an open source programming center to learn the intent of code and then write new code based on what it thinks the intent of the developer is. So you can tell Bayou, write me a program that will do XYZ, and it will find code that it thinks can do that, and it'll write a new program to do what you want to do. And that is AI. That to me is like, we didn't code it. It knew what to do to go out excuse me, and get the resources to make it itself. That's where you get scary. Hey, I didn't tell my front door lock to never lock me out, but it sure as hell did because it decided for whatever reason. And that's where you get into this concern of like, not the Terminator scenario, but like, hey, if these programs can write their own new language and we're allowing them access to every bit of our life, what's to stop them from whatever?
So what are you going to do about it?
Well, I don't see it being so drastic as she explained, or as you're saying, where, I think her example was Amazon came out with a new smart microwave.
Right.
Which seems sort of really silly. why do you need your microwave's pretty
Right.
easy to use.
Right.
So then you start to ask, well, why do I have this, or why did they bring this out, or what are they getting out of it? I spend a lot of, usually now when I interact with technology, I'm asking, what's the return for whatever this is?
Mm-hmm.
Like Amazon owns Whole Foods. If you download the Whole Foods app on your phone and you go there, you can scan, you get special deals.
Mm-hmm.
So wait a minute. So I get all this special free stuff, lower discounts. Like, what's the return?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they know what you bought. They know
you
when you bought it. I don't, but my wife does.
Okay.
'Cause she wants the discount.
Right.
They know what you bought. They know when you bought it. They know what time and where, which location. They know how much you bought. It's an itemized thing. They know how often you go. They know how long you were in the store. That's all. That amount of data just can be done between your phone and that app. Once you go in. So I think what I look for is, well, where are the blocks? Where does the connection stop? And that's what she was kind of saying with the house, where with the minute you go in your house, it kind of stops right now. But with Alexa, it doesn't, because it's listening to your conversation, even if it's just listening to keywords. So it doesn't hear every and. It doesn't pay as much attention to the word and as it does to the word beer, And the subtleties are the things that I'm concerned with. And if you have an AI that's working, and especially with new bio metadata that's coming out and wearables that are, Apple just this week or last week, they introduced something with their new phone is able to pick up much more bio data on you. Then now they not being people, but they being the programs, the technology. The technology has a goal. It's like you said, it is a program. It's you're telling it, this is what I want out of you, and it's saying, okay, I'm going to do it. And then it's going to find all these kind of ingenious ways that you really don't think about to do it. And then it has all this sort of background data, and it has ways to get around to different forms of data. It has ways to track you. And if it starts reading your emotional state more and more, it already can, because it can pick up how you use the mouse and how quick or slow you use it. There was something to be said about insurance companies or the medical field could actually use that kind of data to decide, say you had Parkinson's early stages, you wouldn't know it.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Well, and I wear this, and it's tracking my heart rate and how much I move. It said great workout earlier when I got a little excited and I was talking too much, and I talk with my hands too. So
how much you bang pencils and stuff,
right?
On the
how much I
table
play with pens and things like that on the table, but
forcing me to edit
whenever
it
the
out
insurance
later.
company, whenever the insurance company comes to me and says, "Hey, we're gonna have to raise your rates. We've noticed that you haven't been hitting your steps."
Right.
Well, that's when this thing goes in the fucking garbage. Then it's like, you know what?
But if Alexa's doing the same thing, which is what the patent was applied for this year,
well, that's looking at your emotions. That's not going to tell it that
knows when your heart rate goes up.
But it might be able to tell stress.
Yeah, potentially. But it doesn't know that I'm physically active. Like, this knows that whether or not I'm moving. But so does my phone. So does your phone.
Right.
It knows if you're moving.
Yeah,
or
it tells
not.
me how many steps I take every day and how far I walk.
That's, and I'm sure that the insurance business. Look, the thing in your car that you plug in, for the onboard, the OBD onboard diagnostics. Underneath the dashboard of every modern car is a port, and you take it to the dealership. They plug it in. They get it. Whoop, downloads everything. So now they sell these devices. Insurance companies do. They give them to you, and you plug it into your car. And now it's constantly tracking your driving habits, and they're going to give you a discount because now they have a glimpse into your world. Which there's your give and take, right? What are they getting? What are you getting? You're getting this cool gadget. You're getting a discount on your insurance, but they're getting all this data, and they know when you're driving like an idiot.
Or where you're going, what time you're going, how many stops you make, who's in the car, or not necessarily who, but how many people are in the car, perhaps, how much they weigh, whether it triggered the seat belts, whether you're taking cargo or people. There's a lot of data when you start really thinking, well, how much could I really look at if I was an algorithm, if I was trying to figure it all out? And then you start realizing, holy cow. It's just like an onion.
But all those things, what's the value in that to Google or to Tesla or to Liberty Mutual?
It's infinite. They're going to know so much more about you that they can target to so many more businesses.
But it's just to sell you more shit.
But it's also to track, to control, to what if they want to sell that information to the government?
They're publicly traded companies. They have investors. They have to answer to investors. So they have to show at least signs of a future profit. I mean, Tesla doesn't, I don't think it's turning a profit currently, but people have tons of confidence in Elon Musk as this sort of persona of technology, sending cars to outer space and now developing Neuralink, and he's got the coolest car. Did you guys drive it? Did you guys?
Yeah,
didn't you do an episode on? I didn't see that one. That's probably one I should have.
Well, it wasn't video. It was pre-video.
Okay.
But we're gonna have him back. I think. Does he have a new one? You told me. I just saw the same one.
Not sure. We drove his
Model
newest
3, right?
Yeah, I think that's his newest one.
And that was cool, and also terrifying. And then talk about AI and how this car drives itself. And we give yourself. We didn't. He did. I drove it. He let autopilot take over, and it knows. I mean, it's all data driven, right? It's got data from the highway department. It's got cameras all over the damn thing that says where the lines are. It knows the speed limit through a database,
right?
And so
that brings
and
up
GPS.
Another, I'll say, horror scenario. In my opinion, in order to get autonomous driving truly viable to where this really works reliably, we need to have way more sensors. Sensors at every intersection, along the highways, along the roads. Nearly every vehicle needs to be plugged. Probably every vehicle needs to be hooked up to it.
Yep.
So that you can do real-time adjustments on the fly. They know when you're approaching an intersection. It knows when this vehicle's approaching.
It's
all
there.
that stuff, right? It is.
It's all there.
Right. But it all needs to be, the infrastructure needs to be implemented.
No.
But that's where you get, well...
You don't even need anything else.
You already live in a surveillance state.
I'm saying every intersection doesn't have sensors that
doesn't
know...
need it. The cars have it.
Okay.
And the there
but here's where I'm going with it. So
practically.
What happens when we start putting in safety precautions in the software, in the AI, to say, prevent this vehicle from getting in an accident? We already have that, right? Avoidance detection and braking automatically and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So let's take that to the next degree where we try to calculate and coordinate this dance of cars to where we avoid
it. They're talking to each other.
Right. But what happens when you're driving along in your car by yourself and a van of 8 kids and their single mom is approaching and one of you is going to get in an accident because of something else, and their AI and your AI are both calculating on the fly, and they say, you know what, that van is more valuable than you are because they've got 8 people in it, and we're going to let you go into this intersection and die instead of them.
Yeah.
Even though you could have avoided it. You were in control. You could have stopped. You saw them coming, but they said, nope, you're going instead because that's the smarter thing to do.
That means the AI broke.
Why? They saved 8 lives instead of 1.
Well, no, because it's not supposed to avoid the accident.
Well, but I'm saying if a tree fell or something else, there's always going to be a failure in something like that.
These are all
in that infrastructure.
Black Mirror type scenarios. But in reality, those things it'll never happen. It'll never be possible to be to that level because I have a 1968 Pontiac that I'm not getting rid of, and it doesn't have fucking cameras on it. It's got a throttle body. It's got a carburetor. It
may decide to take you out first. It's like, well, that guy totally doesn't even count.
Right.
He won't get with the times.
That's a UFO, really. I mean, if you talk about this infrastructure of all these smart cars, and like my wife's Chrysler 300 has all these cameras on it and sensors and everything like that. Yeah. Now you have a bunch of those cars, and then they see all of a sudden they're like, "What's this thing over here? It's not. It doesn't have an identifying signature. It's a UFO. We got to take it out. We got to destroy that thing." Or avoid at all costs. Maybe it's perfect for me because now all these smart cars out there are going to avoid me, and I just cruise on down.
But part of the problem I think with it is that, and we humanize this stuff. We even as you just talk about it, you sort of put it in this context of, well, it's this evil entity that's out to get me.
Right. It's making decisions.
And I know you're being a bit hyperbole, but I mean, but it's not really. It's like you said, it's a program. It's just trying to accomplish its goal the best way possible with the system as how it knows or how it is programmed to do. But these questions become real hard where you go, well, what does it do when you do have this sort of, a bus full of kids versus you in the car? And I mean, frankly, it's not here yet. Like, you can't take your Tesla and drive cross country and let it drive you. It's not going to do that. I mean, you can put it in auto mode, right? and you can use it, but
can go on long
technically you're not
stretches.
even supposed to let
Yeah,
go of
you're
the wheel,
supposed to still
right? But
keep your
I've
hands
heard
on.
you can put the
Sure.
orange or whatever in
Yeah.
there and do stuff. And wasn't there a person that recently did die in a car accident where he was letting it autopilot and didn't have his hands on the wheel,
I
and,
believe I heard
and
something
a
like
truck,
that.
a semi truck had gone by, and it went to change lanes because the truck, according to the sensors, just didn't look like a truck.
Right.
You know,
Right.
That
And
has
it
happened
ran
where
into it.
similarly there was a truck that crossed the intersection, and it was a white
It was okay.
side of a truck, and as the Tesla was approaching it, it just didn't perceive that
so
as
it was like,
anything, and
time
it
to
just
go.
kept going. But the guy was like reading a book in the back seat or something stupid. Like
Yeah.
the driver
Right.
of the Tesla was totally at fault,
Right.
but the car didn't do its job and detect this
So
thing.
that's exactly what I was saying.
Well,
though.
it
It's like-
did do its job. It just wasn't programmed to make
Correctly.
to
but it's not
detect
this
white
perfect
trucks.
world.
Right.
It's not this perfect
That's
world,
right.
So in the perfect world, Tesla would have control over what trucks can look like. You know, it would say, well, no,
Right,
that's
that
not
would be an
allowed.
easier answer, right? You
Right.
just go, well, you make all the trucks look the same, and we'll make those
Mhm.
autonomous
Right.
too, and that'll
so
be
you make it a
that's
Department
easy.
of Transportation requirement that all trucks can't be white.
And
They have to
Tesla's
have.
going to start selling shipping trucks real soon. So
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean they've
They'll
already
be in control,
displayed
yeah.
those models of,
Yeah.
of the self-driving trucks, and
Right.
and they're crazy. They're really fast, and I mean it's cool stuff. I mean they're doing neat stuff.
yeah.
It's also scary, but
What do
all
you think
good.
of the unemployment issues? You know, like with truck drivers.
Mm.
You know, I
this
mean,
is a Andrew
I was-
Yang
it's
conversation.
an Andrew
Actually-
Yang conversation.
Yeah.
So I was going to
sorta.
bring that up. Let's segue a little bit. We're getting close to the end of the episode as far as time wise.
Oh, shut up, Jared. This is gonna be a
we can go
Rogan
long.
episode.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going 3 hours on this one.
You mentioned beer and buying beer.
Right.
Let's get out the beer that you brought, and
Okay.
we'll try that. But I'm going to talk about.
We're just gonna shit on the
this
Andrew Yang
issue.
conversation.
No. I want to get to that. So part of the video, while you're getting that out, that you sent us, they mentioned, I believe it was over in China, where
I get in trouble. Hold on. I get in trouble for playing with pens. You're dying over
I'm
here.
going to take that out. I can't help it. Okay.
I'm making little noises like Johnny
Yeah, but
Carson.
it's constant.
Johnny Carson for 30 years did this shit on TV.
That
It
was
became his signature
endearing.
thing. You know,
It's not endearing when you do it.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe they love it. Maybe
Write in. Let us know. Do you
How
love it when
like me
no.
playing with pencils and
I
you
got
know?
to take all that shit out?
Yeah. No, now it's there. Now you can't take it out because they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" It's I don't
All
know
right.
anything.
Anyway, they were saying over in China, they've created these giant warehouses where they're growing
Lettuce.
lettuce, all
Yeah.
kinds of different
Right.
produce, and 50 feet tall shelving racks, layer upon layer upon layer. So as big as this building is, they've got acres and acres of actual plants,
Mm-hmm.
and they said it's way more efficient. They don't have to worry about the weather.
You're not going to bring up the climate. Okay, you did say weather.
Right. They don't have to worry about, too much rain, not enough rain, whatever. Perfect conditions. And they can essentially, I think what they were getting at was they can sell it from there and essentially, ship it to you from these giant stores, so to speak, which effectively they were saying this could potentially affect places like Walmart, who half their business is grocery stores now.
Yep.
And so Amazon is wanting to get into this. So they've already bought up Whole Foods. And
Right.
I think you said they're buying up land all over the country to build these big warehouses. And eventually they want to get into, and they've expanded, they've spent, I think they said billions on developing online grocery shopping.
Right. They have another food chain entity that's coming up.
Right.
I think that they've purchased, and most like now there's the latest Whole Foods, and I just shop at Whole Foods because I'm that guy. Is in the Central West End, which
Yeah.
seems like the worst place to have a Whole Foods if you've ever driven down Euclid.
Right.
Right.
But it is in that sort of, it's a parking garage and buildings are all in one, and it's got a substructure. Although St. Louis is a little weird because we have a lot of underground tunnels and junk.
But they talked about a big part of the trucking industry is shipping produce and food
right.
all over the country.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to do that anymore because you can grow it wherever you need it, then that's going to put a lot of truck drivers out of business, a lot of trucking companies, a lot of the, it's just going to have this extreme ripple effect throughout the economy just because we made a better way of growing food.
Right.
And to me, that's exciting that we can have a better way to do it, but also like concerning, like, oh man, what's going to be the effect of that on all these other industries that we don't
New
think
jobs
about.
will be created. Someone has to build those warehouses.
Yeah.
Someone has to build the infrastructure for those greenhouses and build the equipment that goes into building that greenhouse to grow that lettuce. Someone has to harvest that lettuce.
Yeah.
So the truck driver is, potentially lose a job, but other jobs will be created. And it's not, a lot
And
of
you could argue that the trucking industry came from something else. Like,
sure.
We don't have an obligation to provide truck driving
right.
industry.
Before 1900, there was no trucking industry.
Right.
Before 1920, there was no trucking industry. So it's not Andrew Yang's argument. It was somebody else who was on Rogan that made the argument that, like, we don't have this finite number of jobs that's been there since the beginning of time. Things have evolved. The Industrial Revolution occurred, which reduced a lot of jobs. The cotton gin reduced a lot of jobs. But other innovations occurred that created other jobs. So we with the self-checkout line, for example, got rid of checker jobs. But someone has to maintain those machines. Someone has to build those machines and program those machines.
Right.
So one innovation results in a new job.
But there's a certain aspect of this, and it doesn't apply so much to retail people. I don't think it does, unless you own your own store, you have a family business store. But truck drivers who are Teamsters, I assume, mostly, and I've learned this more since I've started my new day job, because I work in a very sort of blue collar atmosphere. There's a lot of lineage and pride with those jobs. Even if it's a truck driver, truck drivers feel free. They get cross country. They get to see the world. They feel like they have their finger on the pulse. Maybe they're Teamsters, like their uncle or their father was a Teamster. Right. That means a lot to them. When you take that somebody, I mean, it's one thing to take somebody's and go, well, sorry, Ryan, I know you work in the financial industry, but let's face it, I mean, we just have algorithms that do it better.
Right.
And, we're just phasing this out.
That's a real thing.
That is a very real thing. And those are really the jobs that are in trouble. These sort of back room, you do a lot of data entry, you do a lot of, phone stuff or making copies or whatever. Those jobs are, see ya.
Yeah.
Sort of, those type of white collar jobs. But with something like this, and honestly, so I work in a fabrication shop in the day now. It's a new job I have. I like it. I worked in a wood shop 20 years ago, same sort of deal. We were a fabrication shop and a vendor company for Bass Pro when I lived in Springfield, Missouri. And we had, for the size of the shop, probably about the same amount of people that we have in this shop. Only this shop's way bigger. But the one thing that we don't do anymore is cut material. Like, that is gone. You
got these machines that do it all for you.
The machines do it all.
Yeah.
And not only, and so it went from, you had to have skills to cut material. I mean, you just don't let anybody run a table saw. That's not a good idea.
Right.
And
now you just put it in a machine. The program identifies the boundaries of the raw material, right?
Right. Well, I mean, at first you would have to use what they would call G or M code. M code is basically metric. And it was a language, just like, Pascal or whatever, and it was just a code and you learned it. But now these machines are kind of have their own proprietary software. So it's very sort of click and drag kind of stuff. Right. You don't really even have to know how to use it. And so that enables that person who runs that job, who also maybe goes over and helps start assembling stuff or goes over here, and you start dwindling down these sort of lifelong craftsmen,
right.
Right. Who no longer have a need to do that. At the same time, I will say that this line of work is struggling to find people. This line of work, meaning sort of manual labor, blue collar, production.
So that causes a need for technology. We can't find workers to do this, so we need to find a machine that can do it.
I think what it does is it sort of gives a reality of goes back to a reality of what AI and technology is, and how much it's not killer robots or not robotics, because that's one area where we kind of have a deficit. We've all seen the Boston Dynamics dog, a robot dog, and of course Black Mirror did an episode that sort of mirrored that.
The human robot that can jump, on top of crates and ridiculous feats of strength.
But those robots are connected to a controller, and that they're being controlled by a human. They're not autonomous, and we're not even close to that. I should let me back up. Yeah, I shouldn't say we're not even close to that, but from what I've seen from a wide range of people. Hey, I haven't introduced everything. what I've seen from a wide range of people, the people that are being honest, the people that aren't trying to either appeal to media marketing or investors, are basically saying, that's a long way away so far.
Right.
But still, like and even like self-driving vehicles, that's kind of, we're not going to see that next year.
No.
It's going to be a slow burn kind of thing. You're going to see this stuff slowly integrate in.
Well, you see these things, you see like I was talking about my wife's car. It's not a Tesla,
right,
but it has a lot of these features where with
my wife's car too,
with a flash of the program in that car, it could drive itself.
right.
it senses the lanes. I can take my hands off the wheels. It'll self-adjust. It'll alarm me. It'll say, "Hey, get your hands on the wheel, asshole." And then if I don't put my hands on the wheel, then it'll shut off that lane sensing. And it's like, all right, now you can't play with your toys anymore, fucker, and you need to actually drive the car. I think Tesla does the same thing, but it gives you more leniency. But all those things we're going to keep seeing more and more added to the new cars. They're just going to keep stepping it and further and further and further. Before we know it, here we are. It's the way they introduced cable television or cell phones, right? They introduced cable television like, hey, there's this new thing, and it's relatively inexpensive. You get, instead of 4 channels or 3 channels, you're gonna get 50 channels. You're gonna get 100 channels, and they give it to you, and then people get hooked. Cell phones. So these cell phones are kind of cool, and now we're hooked on it, right? So they're gonna keep adding these features to automobiles or to.
Well, we're not just hooked. You have to have a cell phone. Pretty much.
Yeah.
In order to do business, in order to function,
to get along with most of society, you have to have one.
And even people that we know who are like, well, I still have my flip phone and I have my dumb phone. Well, you still have a mobile phone, so you have crossed the threshold into wireless mobile phone.
But we see these peaks and valleys, right? So we've seen with cable television, for example, with media, right? Everybody had to have cable, right? So we all went out and we got Spectrum. And then, this is stupid. I'm paying a shitload of money. Well, there's this other option out there. It's called satellite. It's Dish Network or DirecTV. Okay, I'll try that out. They're a little cheaper. And then they realize, well, shit, we can charge a lot of money too.
How old are you?
I'm 44.
Okay. So you and I are the same age.
Yeah. So then, but then now people are like, well, I don't want to spend that much money. And it's like, all right, now we start cutting the cable, which we've had a full episode about that. And now we see there's all these options out there, streaming options. I saw an article today or yesterday about people are getting tired of streaming because there's just too many fucking choices that you'll end up spending an hour. But like you sit down in bed, you got your pajamas on. You're like, I'm going to turn the TV on and I'm going to watch something while I go to sleep. Well, before you find anything to watch, it's time. It's past your bedtime.
Right.
You'll never find anything. So people are getting tired of that, and I think want to go back to just turn the TV on. What's on Channel 5? Oh, look at that! It's Jimmy Fallon. I'm going to watch that, and I'm going to watch the guy after him, and I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to fall asleep probably watching Fallon. And people want to go back to just I turn the TV on and something's there. I don't want to have to go searching for something.
Don't you feel networks are getting diluted though compared to the way they used to be?
You mean like the broadcast networks?
Yeah. Like you said, because you said turn on Channel 5 to watch Jimmy Fallon, and I don't think of it like that because I don't really have network TV too much. I guess I do, but I don't look at that part of the TV. So I would just think, I want to watch Jimmy Fallon, and then I'd immediately go to YouTube and see the playlist and see what all and what all has.
And you watch
out.
it on YouTube before you'd watch it on any.
Well, it'd just be more convenient. It's on my phone, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
I think the answer is not getting back to I just want to turn it on and what's on Channel 5. It's more getting better predictive results to what is when I turn on Netflix, every single thing on that screen is something I want to watch, as opposed to like
it's not for me.
That's what I'm
Netflix
saying. We need
took
to
a big hit last week, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, their subscribers are down, and
there's a bunch of new streaming services from the other people.
Not as good.
It's going to get interesting, and I think I've talked about before I want to reset. I want to reset my Amazon account, my Netflix account. I just want to all right, forget everything you know about me. I want to go back to square one, relearn me. Because, right now, my kids are on my Amazon account. My kids are on my Netflix account. My wife. So I have 4 different personas, my kids and myself. My wife doesn't have one. She uses mine. So whenever I go on there, now I'm getting some rom-com shit that I don't care about.
So now you can't use the technology because the data is all screwed up.
The data's junk now, right? Because she's polluted it.
So this kind of shows how much you actually rely on that data transfer.
Yeah.
And even something as simple as like TV, and what you watch. Now you talk about what you were mentioning earlier, Amy Webb and the house, and not letting you out of your garage. And I think those things are pretty far away. But I think the nuances of maybe like what you watch and how that's presented to you is not so far away.
Right.
And those are the dangers of like, well, you know, what do we do with this AI is just, you know, it's tracking us and the data's out there, but what are you going to do? And it's, you know, what can they do? It's not a big deal. What do I have to hide?
Right.
But people are really malleable, right? I mean, we see that on Facebook. It doesn't, I mean, one thing AI has figured out how to do is how to anger people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know that because there's a lot of angry people, and we know that also because it's a driver of clicks and times. And the Russians absolutely have a huge enterprise with trying to keep on that.
Yep.
And it affected to some extent our election in 2016.
I don't disagree.
And it will probably affect this election.
Probably.
You know, so those to me are these. You know, not only is it that it's possible, or that these influencers, I mean. And I say influencers not in our kids' Instagram influencing thing, which is
Lori Laughlin's
don't let
daughter.
the old guy in me get out. But but I mean, you know, there's that program is looking for a reward. It wants an end goal in order to make either stop or move on to the next part of the program, right? And we want a reward, right? I mean, that's why we're on there. I mean, you were talking about how your wife had taken off. Did you say this on there, or did you say privately where your wife had taken off Facebook, but then she put it back on? Okay,
yeah.
So I didn't want to divulge anything.
Sure.
Yes, he's married. Anyway, to a wife.
Yeah.
So
sorry, ladies.
Sorry, ladies.
Right.
Wah.
Right.
Anyway.
Face for radio, right?
You know, but but she couldn't. She wanted it back on. She wants it back on. And you can
desperately. I
and
think
then you start looking at it and go,
literally
well,
had withdrawals.
What could you do at that time? Like you could take an art class, you could read a book, you could learn jujitsu, you could do all kinds of things, right?
Jiu-jitsu would be funny as hell. We should do that.
What do you mean?
With my wife. It'd be great to watch her learn jujitsu.
I do jujitsu.
That's awesome, but I just think like it'd be funny. I don't know, to watch her. I don't know.
I refrain from saying it because it just makes me sound like a total.
No, it'd be
Rogan
cool.
follower.
I would love to do it too. I'm a fat
You
fuck,
should do it.
and I need to find some way to burn a whole bunch of calories and teach myself some discipline at my ripe old age of 44. But
like not fucking with pencils and shit on the table.
Yeah,
all the time,
you know,
constantly.
I've had mine in my hand.
Man, baby steps. I quit chewing tobacco. I'm trying to do better. I'm drinking only Coors Light. I'm trying to stay. I'm going to drink some fancy beer here in a second.
Noticed. What's the deal with the Coors Light?
It's refreshing. It's hot, and I like Coors Light. It's a more refreshing beer. It's more crisp. Okay. I love Bud Light. There's no doubt about it. Bud Light's got a little more sweetness to it. It's not quite as crisp and refreshing, if you will. Stag is a little bit too meaty. It's a little bit too heavy.
No sugar in Stag, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's good for diabetics. Yeah, I've heard that as well.
And I find
Speaking
that
of
Stag
beer,
in the bottle
let's
is
get
better
to this
than
beer.
Okay, so I knew that I was coming on here. I'm a big fan of the show, and I've watched over and over again.
Is that a Weech?
It is, and I'll explain all. And so I wanted.
How can I identify that?
I wanted to make a presentation.
Yeah.
So we'll start with that since you're done. I will say this is from my wife because she last weekend before she left for a trip was saying, you know, you got to bring Jared a Weech. She really, this is her favorite beer.
I've had plenty of them.
I've had them too.
Now I had said that I generally don't like peach flavored things, and she said she doesn't either, and this isn't too peachy.
It's a good beer.
It's good. Do we want to grab those mugs?
You can drink that. Well,
you can drink that.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of them here.
You go ahead and drink that.
So anyway, you guys can pick and choose however you want, and there's more to this. So anyway, I wanted to focus on local beers because I'm from St. Louis, and when you come out and to outside of the city, sometimes us city slickers take a lot of crap from our relatives about.
You're from this town, aren't you?
Well, I'm actually from farther south. I'm from really rural. I grew up like outside of Prairie Rocher. If any of you know where that's at.
Yeah, nobody does.
Right. Is it underwater right now? Who knows? Who cares? So anyway,
city slicker though.
You know, not to be pretentious, but I did bring an array of different beers that I think you guys might like. So some of these are from Second Shift Brewery, which is just north of the hill.
Okay.
And I have friends who brew their own beer, and they consider Second Shift to be like some of the best in town. So this is an Indian Pale Ale. I kind of thought Ryan might like that. I know he's an IPA And then this is a hibiscus wheat, which actually I had, or excuse me, hibiscus wit.
Yep. A Vit
Belgian
beer.
style beer with spices. And I had that on draft at a restaurant recently, and I really liked it. So
Right
I thought you might like that. I think you and I are kind of into the lighter beers.
Yeah.
I used to be into the heavier stuff, and I just I think since my diet's changed, it's hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is from Heavy Riff Brewing, which is in Dogtown in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually a sponsor of a series of shows that I did a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so that's their
That's
Velvet
brown.
Underbrown.
All right.
And it's pretty meaty.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
That's
don't
a
eat
Brian
it. Don't
kind of-
have it on a full.
I love brown.
I
ales,
kind
too, yeah.
of figured. And then this is Four Hands. I have friends that work at Four Hands. It's a great company. Their Ripple White Ale, which I thought either Jared or I would like.
Right.
And then also, not to be disappointed, because I know you guys are big koozie people.
Oh,
I happened to
nice.
get you some
Oh, look
St.
at that.
Louis
Look
beer
at that.
koozie,
St. Louis
This is a game
koozies.
changer.
solidifying my ability
With
to
some
come back
hops
on the
there.
show.
That
hopefully.
is awesome.
That is really nice.
So enjoy.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Now, which one of these do you want? Or you want to?
then,
Hold
like
on, let me
split 'em up,
point,
or
of
we
order,
pour 'em?
point of order here. Rick, you suck. You came with no gifts. This is he just raised the bar for us. So
That's right.
take note, future guests and past.
The bar has been
the next time
raised.
I'll come on, I'll play your theme live. How about that?
Oh, that'd
With
be
Jared, I
amazing.
could do it together.
That'd be
Right.
amazing.
We'll do
Can
a
you do
live
like an
rendition.
all on guitar? Can
Oh
you,
yeah, totally.
There's a guitar right behind you.
Well, not right now.
oh come on.
No, we don't.
We'll say that
There's
for
a
the
lot of
half-loaded
technical
episode.
aspects of that.
All
but
right. I was excited.
The
there.
AI here doesn't have all
That's
that in
right.
place yet, so we can't make that.
All right,
happen.
let's drink
All
some
right.
beer.
I want to
How are
use
we doing
the.
this?
So I'll just.
So
unless-
you want to pour?
yeah, you pour some out, and then I'll
Here.
have some can
Let's-
or whatever.
Well,
That's fine.
we know Jared doesn't like IPA. You want to try the IPA? You want to try the brown? We don't have to try them all.
I've
right
tried
now.
all these, so you can.
What do you wanna do?
You guys can work within yourselves.
I'll try the IPA if you want to
All
split
right.
some of that in a mug.
Yeah. Let me get a glass.
So
I won't stick my fingers in it like I did last time.
He's
And
like, here you go.
And
easier to pick up that
I
way.
should shout out. It doesn't really matter. I'm not. But I did. There is a new. There's a new liquor store, not a beer store specifically, boutique beer store close to the house that originally started in Clayton, and I forgot the name, but it's on the bottom of the koozie.
I was going to pour this in there and then give it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I screwed you out. I shorted you too a little
Craft Beer Living, I think,
Yeah,
is what it
what's-
was called.
bit. Okay.
And
That's on one of these?
Yeah, it was on the bottom. This
Yeah,
is
it's on the
yes,
bottom.
Craft
Oh,
Beer
okay.
Cellar.
Craft Beer Cellar.
Craft
sorry.
Beer Cellar,
I
St.
don't
Louis,
write it.
Missouri. I really like the koozie. That is
Yeah,
really
and it's
cool.
got a little
It's got
hops
the
instead
hops
of the
on it
fleur de
and the
lait.
St. Louis flag. For those people
Yeah,
that don't know,
very
it's
cool.
actually
Right.
like that is how the flag goes.
Right.
But
Normally the hops would be a fleur de lait, a little French
Right,
insignia, but for the beer side of people,
All right.
it's
So we just opened a bunch. So
What
let's-
did you
let's do
open?
this. This
this is the Art of Neurosis
okay.
IPA.
That is not for the weak.
This is
I can tell you the second shift stuff is for
AON
it's not
is
for
the
amateurs.
first beer I made at the brewery. It is a hop sandwich brewed with Simcoe and Columbus hops, which are the greatest things in the world besides a good smack in the face. I like this guy. Storing this beer under 40 degrees will keep it fresher longer. Keep it cold. For a good time, call the brewery. I won't give their number here. I don't, whatever. 314-325-GATO. I don't know what that means. Let's see. 7.6% alcohol by volume. Holy shit.
You guys aren't going anywhere, are you?
Yeah.
I'm going to put these back on.
All right.
Just to keep them cold.
Do you have Uber here? Do you have Uber, Marlon? Lyft? And
We have
Uber?
Lyft. We don't have Uber yet, I don't think. That is
See
tasty.
that, and that doesn't mean to.
Jared
I don't
doesn't
mean to
like
sound pretentious, but
Do you
I
have
just,
Uber here?
It just means I don't know because I'm not around much. You know?
Right.
And
No, we have we got Walmart, we got Taco Bell. The good news is that there's no cops on the road right now because they're all at the,
They're all at the Monroe County Fair.
You might even be able to hear it on
Tractor
the
pull.
microphones. Tractor pull tonight.
Yeah,
This is good.
it is
So,
good. It
I'm
is
not always a huge IPA fan, and I like this.
smooth. It's very citrusy. It's like not citrusy, but it has that. It's hard to explain, but it's that flowery, citrusy taste to it.
No, see, I would have said piney.
See, I think that's a genetic thing. I think it has to be.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. What do you think of this, Dave? That some people like cilantro, and some people just cannot
Right,
fucking
that's the
stand
thing.
cilantro, and that's a genetic thing, right?
Right.
I think it's the same thing with hops. That he tastes pine, and a lot of people do, and I hear it described as that a lot.
That's kind of how I taste it.
I don't
usually.
taste it as pine. I taste it as like this
citrus,
flowery, citrusy type of.
But there are some
fragrant.
that I taste that grapefruit citrusy flavor, and
the one I actually brought in was actually a grapefruit.
That might be why.
Grapefruit IPA,
But,
yeah.
So okay, read this again. This is the Neuroses.
Neurosis.
The Art of Neurosis.
I've seen this is the dude that does the like hand drawn.
Yeah, he does have a
Drawings,
cool.
those are
I don't know
cool.
if you can see it on there,
Yeah.
but there's a hand drawn.
Go to the website and
label.
check them out. Very cool drawings.
And I like that it's just a silver can with a stuck on label. They are at the roots, right?
DIY sort of quality.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Do you want a mug? Or are you going to can it?
Are you wanting to try some of this? I haven't drank out of it yet.
I mean,
Well, he opened the other
well,
one too.
yeah.
I got this one open. Well, okay.
I'll finish this.
Well,
It's getting complicated.
Yeah, it is.
We didn't
getting
do this
complicated.
right.
We'll do it again next time. But take my word for it. This is good.
Remember when we had an assistant
That's
that
good.
cleaned our glasses for us and all that?
Yeah.
What happened to those days?
She's
busy.
She's at the tractor pool.
yeah.
She's driving in it, I believe.
My son might be.
Yeah.
He is at the tractor pool. I was supposed to bring his guitar down today.
Oh yeah, you didn't bring it.
Well, I forgot it. I was going to leave it here,
Yeah.
and then
Is he playing again?
I was so into the
Kind of.
He's
I mean,
kinda-
he's
kinda
wanting to
pulling
get
his
back
stuff
into
together.
it, but yeah.
And so he wanted to get a different pick guard on it.
Yeah, which I
And-
thought was odd. Like,
Well,
I know the one was all scratched, but I'm like, yeah, it's
I
character.
have a black one for him.
Oh,
that
I
put
wondered
on
if
it.
you put black.
So I
that
was
would
like,
look
hey,
cool.
the black, and you can keep the white, and it'll look nice.
Yeah, that'll
it
be
does. It
good.
looks 10 times better.
Yeah.
But I
All right,
addressed the
guitar
frets
nerds.
and all that stuff and made it play good. So
If you need a
Guitar
guitar set up or done any repair work or whatever, go see Dave. Tritone Guitars does great work.
thank you.
You put that pick guard on.
Put you a good deal. He did. He put my new
I
pick
did.
guard on my telly.
And
He
set it up.
Set it all up. Plays good now.
And then I saw him like 2 weeks later and said, "What do you think of the guitar?" And he's like, "I haven't played it." And I'm like, "At all?"
It
and
just
he's
hangs
like,
on
"Not
the wall.
once."
I literally
I
took
know,
it
I
out of
was
the
like, I
case
see
and
it
hung
on
it
the
on the
wall.
wall.
That's all right.
But
It's
I
just
did
a
play
prop.
it the other day. I played it over the weekend.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that I can do a podcast and there's literally a guitar
Heck
there,
yeah.
and we're not discussing anything about guitars.
No.
And I know you had said something about like maybe
think
you
Ryan
were kind of
really
wanting
wanted
to
to
talk
get
about it,
into
and I was
all
like,
that.
"Don't talk about that. That's
I mean,
boring."
it's your life.
Well, it's kind of
yeah.
niche, and it's so.
We don't need to talk about the repair and the rebuilding but I think the retro or
Jesus.
the restoration of guitar, that's cool. That's a neat thing. I really just want you to play something because I think you're extremely talented, but
That's
I
nice.
understand that if you don't, I get it.
There's plenty of there's plenty of me out there on videos and in most domains.
Sorry,
'cause
I took all your phone.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
there was a time when I was not only pro social media, but was singing the accolades
Oh,
and
yeah,
how
man.
great it was,
Yeah.
and how
It can be for the right things.
But and I'll say, my business started in 2012, and the internet has changed, or social media has changed quite a bit over the course
yeah,
of those
sure,
years.
yeah.
For sure.
And I know, that was part of the reason why I kind of was just like, I'm not getting the reach I did, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
And I did some things
It's hard.
strategically that I think most people don't do, like started a private group for my niche, and
It's not going to get any easier because the algorithms
No.
get more smarter and more selective, and it just gets harder to find the audience to get your shit in front of the right people.
yeah,
And it's not going to get any easier. And unfortunately, you still have the fucking asshats out there in the world that, whether they're makeup tutorials or whatever it is, they're not asshats. Those are fine people too. They're just trying to find the audience too. But it's like, there's good content out there. I'm sure. Not saying we're it, but there's good content out there
Absolutely.
that will never get discovered because they just don't know how to massage the algorithm. They don't know how to hashtag shit the right way, and it's a
Right.
shame.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess it's no different than 50 years ago when someone couldn't get an audience at the Comedy Store or something like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine the functionality of it for the user is going to just get easier and easier and easier, and I would imagine that the other side of it is going to get more and more subliminal. And
That's fucking delicious. Give me that Velvet Underbrown. It sounds dirty.
Yeah,
hey,
read that.
check it out,
Velvet.
Dave. They like that one.
Velvet Underbrown.
I made a face when I smelled it though.
No, it's delicious. It's got like a sweet caramely taste to it.
Yeah,
It's really good.
it's almost, to me, it's more of a porter almost. It as opposed to a brown. It's pretty dark and heavy for a brown.
Yeah, it's really good.
Now, my favorite brown, I gotta get a shout out to Civil Life Brewery, because that's Civil Life Brown Ale is one of my faves.
All right,
but you can't find it anywhere. And let's go to Civil Life.
Velvet Underbrown is not your classic brown ale. As with all heavy riff beers, this brown ale is aggressive in flavor, but smooth and decadent. This velvety dark brown ale is brewed with lactose and oats for a full creamy body and dark chocolate finish. And they have a guitar pick. It says brew loud. So obviously these are musicians, you say, that also brew?
Their theme, is heavy riff, like guitar riff, and like their pull handles are all guitar headstock kind of thing.
That's cool.
And
very cool.
I did a series of shows at a local establishment in St. Louis called Gaslight Studios, and it's sort of a bar and a studio in one. And we did some live sort of concept shows that I put on throughout the year, and they Heavy Riff got on board about second or third show into the end and sponsored it. Made it so we could pay the musicians and got behind it, which is great.
What's that say down there, Jared?
Dandy Beer Hall.
Dandy Beer Hall. Okay.
As opposed to Andy Warhol.
Right, I guess. Now I will say it's definitely got a coffee vibe to it for me. I'm tasting
might
coffee.
Be the chocolate that you're getting out of it.
And I'm not a coffee fan, so it's where I don't usually enjoy these kinds of beers.
I used to. I just can't anymore. It's too heavy.
Yeah,
In fact, if you want to finish that, go right ahead.
You're not a fan, huh?
That's okay.
Well,
I'm going to try this Weech.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, hold on, because we are long. Let's want to wrap this up, and we can do. We're gonna keep Dave around. We're gonna
have Dave back for the half-loaded episode.
We can drink a Weech during that. We can talk about a whole different set of topics. Maybe not. Maybe we'll just continue this topic. Who knows?
Well, you asked, what do you do? I mean, you at some point somebody asked, said,
what
do you do?
This up. Yeah.
And that's a good closer thing. And I think it's what we all know. It's you hope for the best and you expect the worst. You become flexible as possible if you're not already. I don't mean yoga flexible. I mean flexible in your behaviors.
Right.
And
prepare
you become
for the
adaptive.
worst. Yeah.
And you stop relying so much on straw man arguments on social media and get out and talk to people and start to understand nuance. Because one thing about a lot of this is that a lot of the AI, a lot of the technology is very binary because that's how it works. I mean, that's the way it can work. We didn't even get into quantum computing, which isn't sort of a thing, sort of a marketing thing, but it's people are working on it. And that's the thing about this stuff is that there is a lot of dollars going in for research. So even though we don't have the autonomous vehicles that we want, plenty of people are spending tons of money trying to make it happen.
Right.
And then Google is, and here's I know you want to finish up. So anyway, and so that's kind of my advice is have conversations, try to find the people that you don't agree with. Don't line up with the people you do agree with.
Don't yell into an echo chamber.
Not that it's bad, but I'm just saying, you're not going to, if we all drink or eat vanilla all the time, then
well, it's fine to have
someone
affirm what you're thinking. That feels good, right? Everybody loves that. Everybody loves to say, "Hey, I feel like this," and someone to say, "Yeah, me too."
Right.
That's awesome. But and everybody should be expected to go seek out those people. But you should also seek out the person that says, "I don't know that I agree with that, and here's why," and then think and explore that other opinion and explore why you might be wrong. And I'm as guilty as the next guy as being unable to say I'm wrong.
We want to know if you agree or disagree. How can they let us know?
Well, they could let us know on the social media we've been bashing for the past hour and a half. At Load This Podcast
Reinstall it so you can
Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Get a load of this podcast on YouTube. If you're seeing us, you know how to find us here. Hit the subscribe button and all that good stuff. Tell your friends about us. Send us an email. What is it? loadthispodcast@gmail.com. But tell your friends about us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Retweet our tweets if you see our tweets or our Facebook posts.
And you're on YouTube.
Little bit helps.
You're on YouTube.
We are on YouTube. We are bigger than life out there. So
get a load of this podcast.
Get a load of this podcast.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. By the way.
Definitely.
It's been
Thanks
a pleasure.
for coming on.
It's been really great. And thank you for the gift. This is awesome. Because all of our other ones. So Jared said on the last one, he's like, that one's kind of slopped out. They are. Our koozies are kind of. They've been through some shit. That one especially, that black one over there is wrecked.
Yeah. That's okay though. Koozies are.
It's nice to have a fancy new one. I'm excited.
Good.
Well, again, we want to thank Dave for coming on.
Thanks,
we
Dave.
appreciate it.
Thank
we
you.
want to thank all our downloads and listeners and subscribers. They've been hanging there with us, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, let's keep it going. Let's hope that July is a record month.
That's right.
Just a disclaimer. I'm a musician, so if you find anything that you disagree with me, you probably should. That's all I have to say.
We're just idiots with microphones.
Right.
With crappy microphones, according to Dave.
Well, at least 2 out of 3 of us.
Jeez. Some of us have upgraded. But,
Jared's got
Notice he's at the head of the table, so to speak.
All right. Until next time, I'm Jared.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dave.
And get a load of this.
I mean, that was the 90s.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think in terms of like, I mean, even the coding that they're using, I mean, you could have said in the 80s, logic was an AI-based code. I mean, you would write the code, it would perform an action. It was, and we don't consider that AI now, but we did then. And their point of view was, really the processing and the data collection is what has become abundant to make this sort of convergence of technology.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say headphones on.
Sorry.
Or anything. I gotta watch.
Headphones on. Go.
Oh man, MXR and then the Behringers. Thanks, dude.
Dude.
We have an equipment snob.
I gotta give you a little bit of crap.
Hey, we got cheap motherfuckers starting a podcast, so
It's all right. This season 3. You need some sponsors.
We do. Maybe you could work on who's it, Heil? Or
Heil Sound, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they'll give you some mics, probably.
Bob, if you're listening.
Yeah, let's work on that. Maybe some studio monitors. They don't do speakers; they just do microphones, right?
Right.
Okay. Well,
I mean, way back in the day, they were known for their PA, right? That's how he got
Bob
famous.
Heil used to be
huge speakers.
He used to have Ye Old Music Shop in Marissa, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also the inventor of the Heil Talk Box, made famous by Peter Frampton.
I remember reading that, yeah. Whenever I went down my rabbit hole because of your post about Heil microphones.
Yeah.
I was like blown away by all this. I'm like, no way. We got completely off the topic you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's because you bashed the equipment here in Silver Creek Studios. Look,
sorry. I love the name of the studio. But... they were talking a lot about how academia has really been stalled out and that we've kind of come into a convergence of a lot of stuff because the hardware is up to date, the data is there now. And there has definitely been some, obvious technological improvements, especially in the last 10 years. But their big point was, academia is really struggling. They've lost a lot of funding. The government doesn't fund them like they used to. They're taking weird political positions. And so Eric Weinstein is the brother of Brett Weinstein, and Brett Weinstein was in Evergreen College in Washington State. So do you know about that?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. So it's like one of the most liberal schools in the country, an Ivy League based style school. And Brett Weinstein I think he's a professor of biology and evolution. Right? So anybody who wants to dive into biology and evolution, you're going to start seeing a lot of contradictions with progressive left-wing ideology. But anyway, this school had every year what do they call it? A day of exclusion, where all the minority students didn't have to go to school for the day. They would go off campus and they would have some sort of whatever protest it, and they would have a gathering to promote this day of exclusion, so to speak, which is fine. Well, then they decided. I mean, if it's off campus, it's not.
Well, it's fine that it's off. It's fine. They can do whatever they want.
And the school gives them a pass, I guess.
It just seems counterintuitive.
Liberal school.
Yeah.
Well, then they decided to do this at the school, and the idea was the day of exclusion was anybody who wasn't a minority wasn't to come to school that day. So, and this was getting approval by their new dean of students, and it was problematic. And Brett Weinstein spoke out about it, first to the faculty, and then his emails got leaked out to the student body, and the students, I mean, they gathered and came after him. Like, and it turned into, it turned into a really hairy situation. The dean of the school decided it was sort of a liberal political experiment, and had the campus police stand down, not do anything, and it got real heated. I mean, it got real scary. And this has kind of happened in, NYU, I believe, had their situation with like the Halloween costumes, if you remember anything about that. Yep. Harvard is making different standards for Asians as opposed to others. And so you're starting to see all these weird, sort of contradictory ideals that are coming from the progressive left. And like I said, I'm on the left side of the fence, although I'm very central based, I think. And the media is not helping.
No. The interesting thing about there's a whole website. I think it's called campusreform.com. It's a right leaning site for sure. It's a Breitbart, Drudge Report type. That's what they're catering to, and they're pointing out this, the problems on college campuses around the world, and most of the problems on, at least from my purview and from theirs, is that the liberals are running rampant, and that if you have an opposing viewpoint on a college campus, you're going to be ostracized. You're going to be ran out of town. You just can't speak freely. And they also talk a lot about the comedians. Jerry Seinfeld's very vocal about not being able to go to college campuses. And for all years and years and years, that college comedians, up and coming comedians, would go to college campuses, and they work out their material and build a fan base. And comedians just won't do it anymore because you can't make a joke.
Look at Ben Shapiro, who's not a comedian, but can't go onto a college campus without security.
Yeah, it's a shame. And Dave Rubin, the same way. I mean, Dave Rubin's a liberal, a reformed liberal, if you want to call him.
Homosexual, reformed, liberal. Yeah. And, and Ben Shapiro, who I don't agree with a lot of what he says necessarily in his backing, but man, the guy's there and he's having the conversation, and he's doing it with what we would consider more liberal, people like Dave Rubin, people like Jordan Peterson, people like Eric Weinstein. He goes on Joe Rogan's show,
right?
And I can get behind that way more. The conversation to me is key. You mentioned it last, it kind of came to that last week in your episode, where it was like, we can have conversations about it, and that's what's important. And I think that's beyond what's important. That's like the only hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because, we're fighting a lot of forces that, again, especially with the media. The media is really a mess.
Yeah. And so, I my oldest son is at college, and he's at Tulane, which isn't every college campus has their liberal, angles and their factions, but there is a Young Republicans, and there's a Turning Point USA chapter down there. So there's a conservative faction as well. But most of the professors are on the left side of things, and so he's told me about some of the things that he's encountered. He's had some great professors that were clearly left of center, but really facilitated a conversation from the middle, and allowed the conversation, and kind of I don't want to say protected, but encouraged the argument, argument in the terms of Rick last week. A discussion, not a fight.
They should protect it.
They absolutely should. And that's what a lot of these colleges were founded upon, right? Is the idea that you can, the true safe space, you can come on that campus.
You could be provocative,
and you could say anything you wanted to. Obviously, other than shouting fire in a crowded movie theater, you could say anything you wanted to without repercussion, and just to begin the discussion. I've talked
and that's gone away.
Absolutely. But anyway, he's seen good things at Tulane, and the most of the problems that I think he's told me about is other people that he's met in casual conversation. He lived in a residence hall that's every other floor is male female, right? So the young ladies on the floor below, they became friends with. They'd sit around and maybe had a cocktail, and they'd have conversation about you name it, politics, religion, sex, abortion, whatever. And in many occasions, these young ladies would just get so aggravated and incensed and yelling and just storm off and calling someone names. They weren't ready for the conversation,
right?
And that's frustrating. And it's frustrating. And now these guys are like man, those bitches are crazy, and they're not crazy. They're just not prepared for the conversation. And because they've been spoon-fed all this information from media and from some of their professors to say, don't worry, this is right. You're on the right side. You're on the moral side of things. You don't have to worry about qualifying your statements or your judgments. You just trust that you're right. Everybody else has to qualify theirs. And when you do, and now then the other side, the right qualifies it, they're triggered by that. So anyway, that's what he's seen. Now, and my middle son, Chuck, he's dealt with a lot of the same stuff in high school. Look, no high school student has a fucking clue about politics. That's why why they're not allowed to vote. Maybe that age should be pushed back a little bit too. But these people, these young people, they're 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, are all going through the halls of a high school, talking like they're Ben Shapiro, or talking like they're what's the guy was Bill Maher. They want to rattle off these talking points like they're the most knowledgeable person on the topic, and really they don't know shit. Yeah, they know 1/10, maybe 1/100th of what they need to know to be able to have that argument. So then my son comes home. He's like, "What do I say?" I'm like, "You ignore it. You walk away." It's the old Murphy's Law. You never argue with a fool. People tend to forget who the fool is. So you just walk away and
now I do think you can have an opinion as a high school kid.
Sure,
you should start forming your opinions now. You shouldn't have this attitude of like, whatever. What I think doesn't matter, because then you might have that attitude when you're 30.
Sure.
But you also need to realize I can have an opinion, but respect your elders, so to speak, and realize that I haven't figured it all out.
Respect other opinions.
Well, sure.
So it doesn't matter what side you're on. If you think that Trump is the second coming and he's the greatest president we've ever had, you should still be able to listen to someone else who disagrees with you, and vice versa.
And a big problem. So, like, I'm a musician. I have a lot of musician friends. So I see a very large portion of when I do look at, because I do have to look at social media to an extent just for my business. I'm not on it because we're going to talk about that, but I do see a lot of what I would call the ecosystem that sort of surrounds my environment with musicians. It's very, there is no conversation. It's total call-out culture,
Yeah.
And you can really see it on Facebook a lot. It's just straight attacking. And we mentioned Peter Thiel. I don't know if that was recording, but we were talking about Peter Thiel a little bit, who's, I didn't know what to expect, but I thought, well, I'm going to listen to this because I'm into Eric Weinstein. And Peter Thiel actually made a lot of sense, even though he's a Trump supporter and I'm not. He's really concerned about violence. He's really concerned about like keeping the threshold of violence to a minimum. And the big problem I see with my sort of ecosystem is that they treat all Trump supporters as they're idiots. Like it's immediate, like those dumb, stupid, it kind of comes down to that sort of, lower level, punching down, I guess, so to speak. And it's, how do you even have a conversation when you're immediately just, you're insulting the other side. Of course, they're going to come back and feel,
be defensive.
Totally, be defensive. And then the media feeds on that because the media is driven by clickbait.
Sure.
And it's this huge sort of weird sort of storm that we're in.
Yeah, and it's going to get it's sadly going to get uglier before it gets better. I think.
Probably.
I feel like there will be. Where was it that the guy drove the car into the group of people, and was that North Carolina?
Yeah, one of the Carolinas.
There's going to be something like that again. Unfortunately, I think. I don't want there to be, but I feel like that's what's going to. And I don't know who's going to be the perpetrator. I don't know if it'll be an Antifa perpetrator, if it'll be a right-wing tiki torch white supremacist guy.
And it doesn't matter because either
matter.
way, it's violence,
right?
And it's the opposite of what people should want,
right? And those people are stupid on both sides of that conversation. They're neither are intelligent folks. But what you said about talking down to people and assuming that because if this, then you're a moron, right? Whatever it is. And so there are people on the right who think that if you were a Hillary supporter, then you must be just completely oblivious to everything around you. So it's on both sides of it. I've lost friends because of we used to have great conversations. This is way before Trump. This is W era, right? Before Obama. I know I keep playing with the pens. Jared's yelling at me.
All of that comes through.
I know.
Anyway,
so
sorry. Go ahead.
But they, and I don't know that I 100% defended W, but my argument was always like, we don't know a lot. We're dealing with a war.
You're saying post 9/11.
Yes. Post 9/11, the decisions that he made, weapons of mass destruction, those kinds of things. There's absolutely some shady shit, but we don't know everything. We don't know what he knows, what he knew. We don't know what his advisors knew. And there was a lot of controversial decisions that were made. And these friends of mine, former friends of mine, continually treated me like I was a child, like I was a moron because I dared to dissent. And I at one point I got pissed off and I said, you know what, I'm fucking done. And we were at a bar and I got up and I grabbed my coat and I walked out and my buddy grabbed me. He's like, dude, just sit down. We won't do that anymore. I promise. It happened again. And I was like, all right, well, let's wrap it up. Let's pay the bill. Let's get the fuck out of here. Walked out and I said, I'm not having this conversation again. And that was the last time I talked to him. Either
it's sad.
It is. And it was, and now I'm sure that their take on it would be like I was doing the same thing. Maybe I was. So maybe I didn't realize I was doing some things. But regardless, I think I try to keep an open mind and listen to everybody's opinion. I'm a difficult mind to change, but I think
most people are. I think. I mean, you get set in your ways pretty early, and it's hard to.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it becomes sort of a boxing match where people just, it's like, well, I'm loaded with ammunition and I'm coming in for the kill.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's like, no. This is the idea is to transfer the ideas and thoughts back and forth through conversation and then go home and sort of sort through and unpack what you've done and think about it. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about some of the biggest issues of what you consider for society, whether it be politics or abortion or technology,
geopolitical warfare.
I mean, why would you want to take these heavy discussions and sort of go to the quickest sort of knee-jerk reactions on them as if you were driving in traffic and at your limit, which is what I see, a lot on Facebook if I'm on there because I'm not. But when I am, because I will go to the marketplace and look at guitars. But when I am,
I uninstalled the app, the Facebook app on my phone. I mean,
it's off.
We have it on my computer, on my wife's computer, not even on my computer. I can't get to it through my work. But I've been on there once, and I think it was whenever I did the post for the podcast, just to make sure that it made it, that it made it to Facebook. That was it. And I was on there for a split second. I was like, all right, that's enough. I don't need to get in. I don't need to go into these wells. I
never post.
There's no good that can come from it. My wife, she did uninstall the app. She's reinstalled.
Oh my gosh.
Well, she had to post some stuff on the marketplace. We don't realize how much we rely on these things. And she we gave away some old lawn furniture, some big metal stuff that, and so she wanted to get rid of it. She knew that if we put it out there for free, someone would pick it up in the next hour. It works. But so she's like, well, I'm just gonna leave it on there, and I just won't put it on my homepage. I'll have to go dig through in order to find the app, and so that it's not easily accessible. I was like, yeah, fine, fair enough, But it doesn't matter because I'm still on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. I'm still on Twitter. I'm still on LinkedIn. I don't know that they're gathering as much data as others. But,
sure.
I'm sure they are. I just don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem as nefarious as...
You can guarantee that any of these entities are gathering data because that's really their main commodity at this point.
Right.
I mean, that goes back to the sort of the technology being sort of stagnant. I mean, there's not a lot of currency in there other than your data.
Right. That's the only way they can offer their product.
And it's the Wild West, right? No, there aren't really any laws on it.
Right.
We don't,
Well, hold on. So why don't we get...
Because we're missing... This is all good stuff.
We're 15 minutes or more.
We're well past the
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. No, that's all right.
No, we're all doing it, so it's all good.
Okay, ready?
No.
Stop fucking with your pencils and slamming the table. All right, ready.
I heard it.